which on the count of 3 they will demonstrate to you the very best curtsy that you have ever seen. Ready, ladies? 1, 2, 3. Do you see what I mean, audience? Thank you very much, ladies. You may return to London. So they ran forward and picked it up, and then they pulled out that message that was inside. They began to read it. And when they read that message, they were so excited they cheered. Because you see, this was the very same message that those wealthy noblemen had sent all that time ago. But then, while they were very excited, they had to think for a moment. How are they going to get to Buccaneer Isle? That's much too far to swim. But then that little lady in the blue hat had a brilliant idea, and she said, "My friend, follow me." They began walking through the streets of London. They walked past Piccadilly Circus, past Trafalgar Square, past House of Parliament, Big Ben, and past even Buckingham Palace itself, before finally they made their way down to the waterfront and the dock, where none other than the Flying Pegasus was moored. And they rang the bell that was on that gangplank, and those sailors there made their way off of their ship, and to see what all that bell ringing was about. And when they did, they greeted those ladies with a great big bow, being the chivalrous sailors that they were. And then Captain Cavendish said, "Oh, lovely ladies, what brings you to our ship today?" And those ladies replied, "Oh, Captain, could you please take us to Buccaneer Isle?" they said, as they showed him that message. "We have some very wealthy noblemen there that we'd like to befriend." Well, those sailors had to think for a moment, but then they turned back to those ladies, and they said, "Lovely ladies, it would be our pleasure to take you to Buccaneer Isle. Welcome aboard the Flying Pegasus." And so all of those sailors and ladies climbed on board, and they showed those ladies to their cabins, and then they all hoisted up the anchor, they raised up the sail, and as the ship began to drift down the Thames River, they all waved goodbye to their friends in London. They did not know when they would ever return. Now, for 2 long weeks of sailing, the weather was gorgeous. The very experienced swimmer, and so they did the front stroke, they did the back stroke, and the side stroke. They even tried the doggy paddle, but it was no use, as the might of that oceanic storm was just too great, and they began to sink down and down into those dark, briny depths. But just at that exact moment before they could drown, a miracle happened. As a school of mermaids was swimming by, and being good-hearted mermaids, they cried, "Everyone follow us!" And as mermaids are the very best navigators in all the 7 seas, in no time at all they were able to lead those poor humans to safety. The sea got shallower and shallower, the waves got calmer and calmer, and finally, those ladies and sailors reached the rocks on the shore of none other than Buccaneer Isle itself, where, thoroughly exhausted, they all collapsed. Now, those mermaids were about to swim back to their lagoon, then they stopped. "Wait a moment," they said. "Weren't some of those people we just rescued shipwrecked sailors?" Now, shipwrecked sailors are a mermaid's specialty, and so they instantly swam back out to that beach and began to sing their siren song. And when they sang and swayed their arms, instantly those 2 sailors were hypnotized. Their eyes grew wide as saucers, their arms stuck out in front of them, and helpless to resist, those sailors... Now, these ladies, though, they didn't even realize what had happened, as they were all fast asleep, completely exhausted from their swim. Now, it was only a few hours later when those pirates there were surveying their beach as they always did, and they looked over those rocks and said, "Wait a moment, there's ladies on that beach." Now, we're fairly certain those ladies were not there earlier. Fish that they could find, and they began bumping those pirates. Now, these were very brave pirates, but they had never been in a sword fight with a swordfish. They had never been flopped by a flying flounder, so they didn't know what to do. Captain Markle cried, "Everyone drop the net, retreat!" And those pirates ran all the way back to their ship. Now, these ladies here were feeling quite proud of themselves as they returned to those rocks and put their fish down. But as they looked around, on the side of the island appeared a magical unicorn. And that unicorn spoke right to those ladies in words that they could hear not with their ears, but with their hearts. And she said, "Lovely ladies, do not despair. Your sailors have not abandoned you, but they do need your help. The mermaids have captured them, but you can save them. Be wise and use your mirrors." And with that, the unicorn vanished back to the other side of the island, just as quickly as she had come. Now, these ladies here had to think for a moment as to what the unicorn could possibly have meant, but then they each had a great big idea. They reached deep into their bags and they pulled out their magic mirrors. And then they stood up off of those rocks and began to walk towards the mermaid's lagoon. As they did so, they called out, "Mermaids, yoo-hoo!" Now, curious to see who was calling their name, those mermaids swam out of their lagoon, and when they did, they saw their faces in those mirrors for the very first time, and they instantly fell deeply in love with their own reflections. And so they snatched those mirrors away from those ladies and swam over to the rocks to gaze at their own beautiful selves, completely forgetting all about those sailors. Which let then those ladies run into that lagoon, and well, they clapped their hands, they snapped their fingers, they shouted, "Sailors, wake up, wake up!" And then all of those sailors and ladies began running over to the other side of the beach. They did not know what other dangers could possibly lurk on this here island, but they knew that they had to get just about as far from those mermaids as they possibly could. Now they waited on the other side of that beach with those sailors standing guard, but they thought that they were fairly safe. However, they were in fact the exact opposite of safe, as it was at that exact moment that those pirates there had recovered from their fish fight, and they made their way off of their ship and out to the middle of the beach when they saw those ladies running away. And those pirates stepped forward and said, "Sailors, we ordered those ladies fair and square, and we want them back." But those sailors there stepped in front of those ladies, and they said, "You are not going to get those ladies, but here's what you are going to get." And thus began the Battle of Buccaneer Isle. Now, this was by far the fiercest, the slowest, and by far the most dramatic battle that anyone on Buccaneer Isle had ever seen. At times, those sailors were pushing back on those pirates. At other times, those pirates pushed back on those sailors. It was those 4 sailors against just 3 pirates. And while those sailors there were the very best sword fighters in all of Her Majesty's Royal Navy, these pirates here were the best sword fighters on all of Buccaneer Isle, and so they were quite evenly matched. The battle raged on for days and days. The sun rose and set, the moon rose and set. Those ladies were swooning, for they did not know who would win. And then, after the 3rd day and the 3rd night of fighting, everybody began to grow incredibly tired. And it was at that exact moment that those mermaids, Captain Cavendish got down on one knee, and he said, "Lovely ladies, you have saved us now, not once but twice from these mermaids. We're not sure how we ever survived without you. So would you please come adventure with us on the Flying Pegasus forever and ever?" Well, these ladies were shocked. They put a hand to their heart. They drew in a great big breath. They looked deep into those sailors' eyes, and they said, "No. No, sailors, we can't go adventuring with you. We came to this island to befriend some very wealthy noblemen, and we cannot do anything else until we have done just that." Now these sailors, though, they were so sad that they began to cry. Great big sobs of grief. They wept so loudly, in fact, that even within their secret lagoon, all of those mermaids and pirates heard them, and they began running out onto that beach from their lagoon, waving their arms above their heads and shouting, "Wait, wait, 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 wait. You're making a big mistake here, ladies. You see," Captain Barnacle said, "I told a bit of a fib. Master, you begin to spin in a circle and kick out your legs." And soon everybody on Buccaneer Isle was dancing the very secret and very silly happy pirate dance. Well, they danced and danced for days and days, for weeks and weeks even, and when they started to get dizzy, they just spun around the other way. And it was after just about, 4 weeks or so of dancing, that they all began to grow quite tired, and so they all ran to the middle of the island, they threw their arms above their heads, and they let out a great big cheer. And then they all did the very strangest thing yet. They all turned to face their audience, and they gave a great big bow to thunderous applause. Thank you all for being such wonderful actors and actresses, and for being such a very wonderful audience in our last show today of the Pirates of Buccaneer Isle.